head to Morgantown for hopefully what's another bounce back game. We're live with you here on Locked On Sooners on the YouTube side of things, so make sure you're tuned in and subscribe to the show. We'll also take some of your feedback, questions, and reactions to Baylor's game, to the recruiting stuff that's happening, to West Virginia. We'll talk about it all on today's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, a live edition of Locked On Sooners for a Wednesday night. We're going to have a lot of things to talk about on today's episode where we go through some of the recruiting stuff that we're hearing. We're going to get you ready for West Virginia, a tough place to play in Morgantown. We'll talk even maybe some National Signing Day on the fall sports side of things as well, softball, basketball. I don't know what nuggets Josh might have on any of that, but we can talk a little bit softball as well. But we'll also take some of your reactions, some of your questions as well. But Josh, let's start football. Let's talk about West Virginia a little bit. How confident are you in the Oklahoma Sooners going to Morgantown and picking up a W?
I don't think you can be overwhelmingly confident, right? I mean, I think Oklahoma's going to win the game, but I would have told you last week that Oklahoma was winning this game versus Baylor, right? West Virginia's been so wildly, they've been the definition of kind of an average to bad football team, which is schizophrenic in the sense that they're really, honestly, John, pretty good at home. And then, you get them on the road out of the friendly confines of Milan Puskar Stadium. And all of a sudden, Neil Brown can't coach, which has been a common theme, common thread for West Virginia throughout his tenure. And West Virginia, JT Daniels and company, they can't play very good football. So the fact that obviously this is Oklahoma going on the road to Morgantown, I do expect Oklahoma to see the best version that they can see of West Virginia. I don't know that, that version of West Virginia is, hypothetically, if it should be good enough even to beat this Oklahoma team with some of the problems that Oklahoma has defensively, John. I know we'll probably spend another night talking plenty of unrest defensively for the Sooners, but with all of that, I just think Oklahoma offensively, if they can do a much better job, right? I mean, you can't turn it over 3-4 times and expect to be even bad Big 12 teams, right? This is an improved top to bottom Big 12 conference. And if West Virginia or Iowa State, if that's the two bottom feeders, right? Even those guys, if you give them 3-4 takeaways, they can rise up there good enough to beat you. I mean, shoot, West Virginia beat this Baylor team that you just lost to last week in Morgantown. So that's a long way to say that I expect West Virginia to give Oklahoma a serious fight, though I like Oklahoma to be able to win a shootout because that's kind of been the history of Oklahoma at West Virginia. And obviously you got an Oklahoma team that's come into the game. I hope, John, probably let's start right here. I hope an equally hungry Oklahoma team to the type of hunger that West Virginia would have in trying to fight for its head coach's job.
Yeah, Oklahoma needs to come in really with nothing to lose, but they need to come full bore. I hate to use the phrase balls to the wall, but that's the way they need to come into this game because they have been so up and down this year. I think they still got a lot to prove to themselves. Yes, we want to see them do more. They have something to prove to the fan base, but it's not about us. It's about them, and it's about preparing for the end of the season for 2023 and starting to kind of right some of those things that haven't been going well for this team over the course of the 2022 season. It's all about building toward the future at this point. And I get they don't want to just completely remove all the red shirts off their young guys, but start getting them more snaps. The guys that have already played their 4 games or more, let them get as many snaps as possible in this thing. I know you got guys that you're trying to, you veteran guys that won't be here next year that maybe you want to give them opportunities to improve their film so that they can go to the NFL draft and maybe have a better outcome in April. But still give your young guys an opportunity. This is the opportunity for them to get some teaching tape. That way they can build in the offseason and learn from some of the things that maybe they did well, some of the things they might not have done well. You got to give them these opportunities though to succeed and to fail. And I don't know if that happens in Morgantown. I don't know if it even happens in Bedlam, but like a guy like Robert Spears Jennings, Jaron Kanik, those are two guys I want to see play a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball because they've shown flashes. It hasn't been perfect. It hasn't always been great, but they've shown flashes of being potential playmakers for this team. A guy like R. Mason Thomas, maybe, he had the offsides penalty last week. He's still a young guy. He's got a little bit of weight he needs to put on him to be able to play and some more of the edge and stand up and, be able to hold up to an every down role, but get him more work, get him a few more looks. I mean, I think that's just the way it needs to go.
I don't anticipate between now and then, even if things continue to quote unquote come apart at the seams, right? Like, let's say the nightmare scenario happens and Oklahoma loses out, right? Let's say that happens and Oklahoma misses a bowl game and, it's a nightmare. It's a disaster. I don't think that we see this Oklahoma recruiting class, John, completely come apart at the seams, right? I don't think that the Colton Vasek situation is this indicator that everything's about to unravel in that regard. Though, having said that, your present, I think, at a place like Oklahoma is very much your future. And what I mean by that is Oklahoma can't really, probably to the same degree, maybe for 1 year, right? Maybe this first year where there is a little bit of that built-in grace period of, hey, it's year one for Brent Venables, year one for this staff, where you can kind of get away a little bit with not being good. But I don't know if Oklahoma continues to recruit the way that they are right now, John. I don't expect things to, again, fall apart right here, right now. But I do think it's in, obviously, Oklahoma's best interest to do whatever it is to put its best foot forward to win these final 3 games, right? So from that standpoint, if a younger player's even with one of the older experienced guys, okay, hey, cool, I'm all in for throwing the young guy out there because guess what? Again, present is your future, and that's all fine, well, and good. But at the end of the day, if you got an opportunity to play a guy that's going to be sticking around into the future and is going to be building something for your future, then by all means play the younger player. But if the younger player's, behind the older player right now, John, I don't know that you can afford to lose these games. You got to win.
Yeah, you just got to win. You can't worry about the snap distribution as much. At the same time, I'm not one that is concerned about what's going to happen with the recruiting class. I think it's still going to be great. I mean, you lose Colton Vasek, you slide from 6th to 8th in the country in the 247 Sports team recruiting rankings. So you don't really need to sweat that. But I mean, just for positive momentum's sake, yeah, you're obviously going to try to win as many games as possible. Look, that way you have something positive to end the season on heading into 2023. I think that's kind of the big key there is you just want to have positive momentum. At the same time, I think you can build that by giving some of these younger guys snaps and allowing them to kind of see what they're made of and be able to learn from and grow from as you head into the season. Now, the bowl game is going to provide a really good opportunity for that, assuming you make a bowl game. I assume that they'll make a bowl game. I assume they'll win at least one of these final 3 games, if not all of them. I say assume. I believe they'll win all 3 of them. I assume they'll at least win 2 of the 3. So you'll have a really good opportunity in the bowl game to play your younger players, get them a lot of reps. So yeah, I think that just kind of, I don't know. It's a hard probably line to manage. If you're Brent Venables and the coaching staff, it's not such an easy thing to try to determine like, hey, we're going to play these guys X number of snaps as we're trying to win the game. Like it's not a preseason game. It's not a scrimmage. You're just going out there to try and win the football game. So we'll continue to talk more about this. We'll talk more about West Virginia, some recruiting stuff. But first, let me talk to y'all about SimpliSafe. If you've thought about securing your home with home security, but have been putting it off, you want to listen up right now. Locked On Sooners listeners can order the #1 rated SimpliSafe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you won't want to miss it. Here's why we love it. Did you know that over the holidays, property crimes like burglaries and package theft spikes nationally? That's why our friends at SimpliSafe Home Security are offering 50% off of their award-winning security system so more families can feel safe and secure around the holidays. If you've never had a package stolen off your front porch, maybe SimpliSafe is what you need to look for. You've ever had somebody creeping around your house, or you maybe live out in the country and don't feel completely safe, get you a home security system with SimpliSafe. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real, so you can get priority police response. SimpliSafe is whole home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and out, smarter ways to detect motion that alert you only when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, other threats to your home. With 24/7 professional monitoring, service costs less than $1 per day. So don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system that we recommend. Get 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/lockedoncollege today. Again, that's simplisafe.com/lockedoncollege. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
What's one thing, John, that everybody loves? A little money back in your pocket, right? Inflation's always got everybody thinking about different ways that you have to cut back, whether that's, hey, I need to drive less. I can't go to that restaurant that I like as much. I got to cut back on that. I need to buy less in the grocery store, whatever it may be, right? There's nothing fun about having to choose less. And that's why I and many others have started using Upside. Upside, it's an incredible app for anyone who buys gas, groceries, or dines out. With Upside, you don't have to cut back as much, right? Because you get cash back on every single purchase. So that Starbucks item, if you're somebody out there that's rolling through the Starbucks drive-through, got to get that Gucci coffee, right? Well, you could still do that, right? Because you've cut back a little bit. Yes, that's John out there for you, ladies and gentlemen. So to get started, download the free Upside app. Use my promo code locked and get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Next, claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. Check in at the business, pay as usual with the credit or debit card, and get paid. Download the free Upside app. Use promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back again on your first purchase of $10 or more. This game, John, big picture on the thing. To me, it's easy to get caught up with, okay, Oklahoma's lost 4 games, the Big 12 championship hopes. Clearly, obviously now that's a wash, right? That's by the wayside. It was basically already a wash going into the Baylor game, but now you can officially call that dream dead. So what is the rest of this season about? Well, it's about trying to end it with some momentum. And it's amazing, right? It's amazing the way that you feel, right? You, the viewer, that I feel, that everybody feels if Oklahoma can just find a way to start playing good football coming down the home stretch. I know that there's not that probably, right, unless you win these final 3 games, and let's see what the bowl matchup would look like under that scenario, John, but there's not that Alabama carrot dangling out there, right? Like LSU we saw get last week. Okay, that's done. Oklahoma State's season has imploded a little bit, in part because of injuries, in part because of their own bad play. So what do you have left? You got a trip to West Virginia this week. You got Oklahoma State, and you got a trip to Lubbock, where all 3 of these games, again, right, what we've been talking about, they're winnable, and it's going to be amazing the way that everybody feels about Brent Venables, about where this thing is headed. If you do one thing, win these games. Now, that's how do you get that accomplished? Well, that's a difficult question, John. You got to be better defensively, which doesn't seem like this team. I don't know. Doesn't feel like there's a ton of hope in that regard.
Yeah, that's a big key, is just becoming an average defense, not just being bad. You got to be an average defense at least. You got to be able to stop the run a little bit, even. I think what's going to happen over the rest of the season is we're going to regain a little bit of confidence in this team, but we're going to really find out like who is going to be a fit on next year's squad. Who's going to be replaceable? What are they going to have to do in the transfer portal to solidify this defense a little bit better going into next year? I think we thought that the additions of Jeffrey Johnson, Jonah Luula were going to be enough to make this defense a little bit better against the run, but it really wasn't. And so, yeah, it's an interesting place for Oklahoma to be in, because they don't really have a concrete future ahead of them. So much depends on what they do defensively, because I think offensively they're going to be good. Dylan Gabriel is pretty good. We know that. They can put up points, even though they weren't great last week against Baylor. They made some mistakes. They had opportunities to win the game and let those things slip through their hands. they were good enough to win if your defense is able to slow them down a little bit and hold them to say 30 points. And so we know the offense is going to be good. What it comes down to is the defense just becoming at least average, not below average, at least, getting to the 25 point per game range as opposed to the 30, 35 point per game range. Cause that's where we're sitting right now. A few questions I think on this front are pretty good. We'll have to talk about it. Where was it? It was our guy Stubby. He says, or he asked the question, where was it? Do we think that it is a Brent Venables problem or that we have a talent problem here at Oklahoma?
Do you want to handle this one? Okay, I'll jump. You can just kind of respond to it. But I think the scary thing that Oklahoma fans don't want to admit to themselves is that it might be a little bit above, right? And I know that, look, it's I don't know. I guess I should say it's human nature, but for a lot of fans, it's your nature to, and maybe this is even split, John. There could be some debate on this, right? You're either the one camp or the other, but I feel like generally speaking, probably more fans, at least right now in the Oklahoma fan base, are erring on the side of positivity, right? In optimism, in that things are going to get fixed for Brent Venables and for this staff once they get their own guys in, and we're doing this conversation again 2 years from now, 3 years from now. And generally speaking, I still agree, right? Because I've seen the track records. I know what they look like for Venables. I know what it looks like for Todd Bates. I like what Jeff Lebby historically has done as an offensive coordinator, though I'm not crazy about bits and pieces this season. But hey, that's offensive coordinating, right? We could do that every single year. We're going to have at least one or two shows where we sit here and we say, I didn't like this play. I didn't like that play. The bottom line, though, is on some level, yes, Brent is a problem. And yes, the talent clearly is an issue too. So that's not all Brent's fault. But you know what? The identification out of the transfer portal is a Brent Venables problem, right? That's his staff's problem. They went and got those guys or failed to get other guys out of the transfer portal. And I wrote, when you were talking about the transfer portal, John, I wrote 2 words down: transfer better, right? Because that's the world that we live in now. We thought Oklahoma had done a pretty solid job in that department. And you know what? They did a couple of years ago with Eric Gray and Key Lawrence, but they didn't do that good of a job this time outside of Dylan Gabriel, right? We thought it was a bigger hit than it's been, so they got to do better there. So it's, the short answer, I guess, is it's both.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think talent acquisition is a coaching staff problem. If the players aren't good enough, then it's up to your coaching staff to identify and recruit and acquire better players. That's the same way it goes in the NFL. If the talent's not there, it's up to your front office and coaching staff to identify and attract better players. Same holds true in college football. But I think some of it is a talent thing. Some of it is kind of a head thing. I think there are times and we see guys like Keegan Renault kind of breaking down the film on Twitter. Some of it is just guys knowing where they're supposed to be, and I think there was one play in particular down in the red zone where, 2 guys, flowed into the same gap and left, the left A gap, like completely void of a defender. Well, that's just not recognizing what your responsibility is in the defense. Stubby, he also, he says like that Brent Venables didn't he didn't bring in these players. He didn't bring in the guys that were currently here, but he brought in the transfer guys, and very few of those guys have really made a significant impact. I mean, I think Jeffrey Johnson's impact is hard to really gauge because he's a one-tech defensive tackle. It's not going to put up big stats. But Trey Morrison hadn't really done nothing. CJ Colton's been up and down. He's got the couple interceptions, but his pass coverage at times has been spotty. We didn't get to see TD Roof. Jonah Lula, he flashes sometimes, and then other times it's like just like the rest of the edge group, he just kind of disappears. Who else out of the linebacker group or out of the defense is a transfer from this year that I feel like, I feel like those are the kind of the main defensive guys, but none of them have really made that significant of an impact. You want to talk recruiting? I think there's still a lot of potential in the recruiting class that they acquired in the 2022 class. Jaron Cannick, Kobe McKenzie, Kip Lewis, R. Mason Thomas, Cavante Henry, Gentry Williams, Grayson Halton, Robert Spears Jennings. Like some of the guys that they might not have started the recruiting on, but they finished it. Like the defensive group, I still think has a great opportunity from the 2022 class to be really, really good and build this thing into a much better defense going forward. But it's going to take a little bit of time. Those guys might not be ready to step into full-time roles as sophomores or as, redshirt freshmen. So freshmen, that's good English. So it's going to take a little bit of time. I think, Josh, you pointed out really well on last week's show where it took 2 years at Clemson to build that unit into a really, really strong defense. And the same may be true here. Brent Venables said it himself over the summer. He said, listen, it wasn't something that happened overnight. It took time. We weren't the best defensive in the country overnight. So are we willing to be patient? It depends on what happens over the next 3 games in 2023. If they don't show some signs of improvement in 2023, then I think it's going to be open for questioning and critique because we got to see some improvement along the way. We're going to get to a few more of your comments and questions along the way. But first, we're going to talk to you about my friends over at Built Bar. If you haven't tried Built Bar yet, make sure you go to built.com. Use our promo code Locked On. You can get great flavors right now. They got cookie dough, coconut brownie bar, coconut brownie topper, white chocolate peppermint granola. They got everything that you could want over at Built Bar. Some of my personal favorites are the peanut butter brownie, and they're revolutionizing nutrition as we know it with 100% real chocolate, 17 grams of protein, and shockingly low sugar and calories. Most bars only have 130 calories and only 4 or 5 grams of sugar, and they taste great. I've been eating Built Bar now for several years, and I can't stop. It's just one of my favorite breakfasts to have. It's a great snack to have in the afternoon too if I'm starting to feel hungry, and it works great as a pre-workout or post-workout fueling for you. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your order right now using promo code LOCKEDON15 at built.com.
BetOnline.net, it's your number one source for all of your pro and college football betting needs and your sports info this season and all year long. So go on and check out all of the NFL happenings, news and notes, college football, the game matchups as well. That's betonline.net. Head on over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. The defensive numbers, by the way, just in case for whatever reason this is show number 1, which, by the way, happy to have you guys along with us on Locked On Sooners tonight. He is the defensive numbers to 2012 Clemson, and I won't run down all of these. Scoring was 48th, total defense was 60th. 2013 Clemson, better, right? Total defense 25th, scoring 24th. By 2014, guess what? It was the number 1 total defense and the number 3 scoring defense. The alarming thing, though, for me, John, is these numbers right now for Oklahoma. Man, it's a far cry from 2012 Clemson, where 57th rushing defense, right? 71st pass, 63rd total, scoring 48th. I mean, Oklahoma's further down that ladder than that. So that's the part to me to where it's like, wait a second. We were talking about coming into this year, was it possible for Oklahoma to get, top 40 total defense? And remember, I said back then, let's not everybody freak out and start thinking that you're going to have a top 25 defense overnight. And lo and behold, you're in that bottom third defensively. So that's the part for me where it's like, man, when we start talking about what can get out of the rest of this season, keys to West Virginia this week, keys to just the rest of the year, man, we have got to see this defense start to turn any kind of a corner the rest of the way, right? I mean, isn't it as simple as that?
Yeah, we got to start seeing improvement. And we might. I mean, some of the matchups are maybe a little bit better for Oklahoma, although West Virginia just ran for over 200 yards against Baylor just a few weeks ago. But, Texas Tech has been so up and down. Oklahoma State might not have Spencer Sanders by that time. I think we assume he'll be back. But it'll be tough to see what this team is able to do. Sorry, I'm looking at some of the comments as I'm talking, and somebody said the O-line can't block. I'm like, Stubby, man, I'm just going to respond to that real quick. Stubby, this O-line has been one of the bright spots for this team this year. Like, Eric Gray's having a great season, and he's not having to necessarily get touched behind the line of scrimmage on every single play. It was Bill Beadenbow that retweeted this, and I'll see if I can find it real quick, but Oklahoma's like second or third in yards before contact. like yards per rush before contact, and that's all offensive line play. So you're creating enough space for your running back to make plays before he's even getting touched. So, sorry, I just wanted to disagree with that. Stubby, man, come on, you're killing me. The Texas game, it's a wash. Like, throw that completely out the window. They were sitting on Wildcat the entire game because we had a quarterback that couldn't throw the ball. Like, of course, they're not going to get as many runs in that game. Like, that's what it comes down to. Like, you're just not going to get as many yards because you had no threat vertically that was going to be able to challenge Texas's defense. In the first half, they looked pretty good. They were moving the football until they got into the red zone and got a little too cute on a couple ones. But I'm of the mind that you just throw the Texas game in the trash and you don't even use anything that happened in that one, except for maybe what happened defensively, because it was just a wash. Like, it's just not even a good eye test for Oklahoma. Yes, I'll grant you, TCU, they got to Oklahoma a few times on their defense, but I think the O-line has been a bright spot for this team. It's going to be interesting to see how many of those guys come back next year. That'll be a big question, but I do think that they've got some talent waiting in the wings. That's for sure.
Just to add a little more substance to the O-line conversation, Football Outsiders is a cool little website that does some, offensive and defensive line grading, because look, we can watch and see Marvin Mims get a 63-yard touchdown reception, right? It takes a special kind of mind to sit and be able to grade the offensive, like defensive line. Okay, I say this a lot, John. Okay, we see somebody getting a TFL, we see somebody getting a sack, but offensive line is maybe a little more unseen. The opportunity rate is 12th for Oklahoma, 53.9% for the offensive line. Basically, runs that should have gone for 4 yards. So it's been actually a little bit better than maybe we would have thought.
Yeah, I think so. I think, like I said, it's been one of the bright spots all year. And it might not have started off great early in the season, but I think it's really, like, from the Nebraska game on, it's been one of the better units on this team consistently. And I think the Texas game, they did some good things in the first half of that game. But then once they came out of halftime and it was all Wildcat, all Texas had to sit there and do was just sit on Wildcat, and they had their keys right. They had made adjustments, and that was all she wrote for the Oklahoma Sooners. Let's get to a few more questions here. War Hero, I don't know if you're still with us or not, but he asked the question earlier. He said, can 2023 Edge Taylor Wayne commit without an official visit? He got a crystal ball prediction in from our guy, Brandon Drum, over at OU Insider 24/7 Sports today. There's nothing that says you have to have an official visit to commit. I don't think Jaron Kanak had an official visit with Oklahoma before he committed. So I don't think that's a concern there. Jimmy asks, does Caleb Hicks have cold feet? I don't know.
I don't think so. I know that he was sort of the first one to kind of, even before Vasek, public with his, commitment to Texas, his flip to Texas, Caleb Hicks was the first one to kind of put the head down emoji and this and that. So I just think that he was disappointed that Vasek wasn't sticking with Oklahoma, but I don't know that that's any direct correlation to whether or not he comes to OU. I mean, look, you still got DeMarco Murray, right, coaching running backs. Vasek, look, it's great to have him if you got him, but Oklahoma's going to get other edge guys. What Oklahoma's missing, man, is the Hickses of the world. We need a big-time DT. Vasek, look, he might be an NFL guy. He might be a great edge rusher. I'm not saying that he's not, and I said right here on this platform that I think it's a substantial, significant loss for OU, but you show me the DT that Oklahoma's getting. Vasek, that's the, I'm not going to say it's the least of my concerns, but it's definitely not the highest of my concerns.
Yeah, I think they're going to be able to find edge guys. It looks like they've already got one. We talked with Ashton Sanders earlier this week. Audio a little bit spotty, but if you hadn't got a chance, go back and listen to that interview. I like this kid. He's only a 3-star player on the recruiting websites right now, but I really like what he brings to the table, and I think that they're going to end up landing him. We've got some Rivals future casts predicting Oklahoma to land him. Not a highly recruited guy, not a highly offered guy, but I think going to be one of those 3-star specials that really grows into a defensive tackle role here at Oklahoma. War Hero asked, what about Hill? Hicks decommitment? Did that open the door? I mean, I think Hicks is back. I think Hicks potentially is always going to be on the table until he signs. I mean, it was a 50-50 thing between Oklahoma and Texas A&M. I don't think that Oklahoma's backed off on at by any stretch of the imagination. They're probably still going strong after him. So until he signs, like, that's always a possibility. Hill, that seems a little bit more of a long shot to me, but you never know what's going to happen. I mean, remember last year, Kobe McKenzie decommits from Oklahoma, flips to Texas after Lincoln Riley leaves. And you think it's all she wrote. Brent Venables comes in, recruits him back. So I'm never going to count this group out on the recruiting trail. I think they've got just the ability to perform on that front. The NIL game Stubby mentions, that's going to be huge at some point with some recruits, not all the recruits.
Yeah. Who was Chavis tweeting about today? I had some other work responsibilities, so I'll be honest and say that I haven't totally dug in and followed up on that. I did see Chavis's tweet, and look, it's, sounds like he was pretty excited about something. So, look, that's kind of the thing with OU here with Vasek, and we'll see. I mean, DT, look, I've, been pretty open and transparent about it. I'd like to see Oklahoma have, a big land inside somewhere, right? We got to get a couple of big time 4 or 5 star defensive tackles, and not the JUCO type. Not that a Perion Winfrey can't help you out, man, but I mean, OU needs to sign and grow those guys in-house to really get where they want to go. But, I do think, across the board outside of, because there's only so many defensive tackles like that, John, Hicks would be huge if they could somehow flip that before it's all said and done. But I just think across the board, probably Oklahoma fans, when it's all said and done, are going to be, this staff's shown us, right? If there's one thing this staff has proven, which it's not, 10-2 season so far, they did show us last year, they know how to close a recruiting class. So I suspect that they're going to do that again.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure what Chavis was tweeting about. I kind of asked, a couple of people that I'm, in contact with, and nobody really had like any definitive answer on it. It could be some of the offers that they're throwing out there. Could be the Wayne crystal ball. So that's interesting. It's going to be hard to say. Like, Taylor Wayne, he got an offer from USC, but then also the crystal ball came in for Oklahoma. The Oklahoma Sooners offered David Peavy out of San Diego. So, I mean, maybe that's what it was, is that he just put out, they just served up a lot of offers today. And so maybe this Miguel Chavis is just enjoying the fact that it's offer season for the 2023 class. And hey, if they're offering these guys this late into the cycle, maybe that means that they feel like they've got a really good chance at getting some of these guys into Norman at some point. So, it's going to be interesting, man. It's hard to say where this is going to end up. I agree with War Hero. I believe that it was going to be hard to keep Colton Vasek in Norman altogether, just because of his history and where he's from and who his dad is, and his mom being a Longhorn too. So that one isn't all that surprising.
Did you see the quote that I think Hayes Fawcett put out from Vasek that, and you always got to be careful. It's like, did I get got with a fake Hayes Fawcett account? But it basically was that Colton Vasek at the OU Texas game was like, why am I here as an OU commit when I love Texas? Like, yeah, that's going to be a tough battle to win. When you got a kid that goes to the Red River game and his dad played at Texas and he's the legacy, and he's thinking to himself, what in the heck am I doing as an OU guy here? You're probably not going to win that battle.
Yeah, I read that and I was like, why did you even commit in the first place? Like,
right. It's like, and then honestly, that's a credit to Chavis in Oklahoma that they were ever able to get that commitment.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said on the Locked On Sooners Twitter account in response to the Vasek decommit and the flip, because the kid, he said in Sam Spiegelman's On 3 story about the flip, Colton Vasek says, I grew up a Texas fan. He's from Texas. How many Texas Longhorns games has the kid been to in his 18 years of life? I mean, I would at least average like one a year. At least he's been to at
More
least
than
18,
that.
and probably it's closer to 6 games a year that he's been to as a Longhorns fan. Like, and so the fact that they were able to convince this kid, a Texas fan with a Texas mom and dad, to come to Norman to play for the Oklahoma Sooners, even if it was just for a couple months, it's incredible. Like, that's miracle workers. Like, so yeah, the fact that he didn't feel like he was in the right place. Of course he didn't feel like he was in the right place. That'd have been like Baker Mayfield standing on Texas's sideline watching that game and be like, "Yep, I'm a Sooners fan, but I'm going to go to Texas." No, of course not. Like, anybody who grew up a Sooners fan is not going to be going to Texas. That could be your only offer, and you might walk on somewhere as opposed to go to Texas if you grew up a Sooners fan. So it is not surprising to me. All right, y'all, we're going to get out of here in a second. We thank you so much for being a part of the show. There's several live shows going on tonight for Sooner Nation. So make sure you go check it out. The OU Insider guys, Brandon Drum, Parker Thune, they got their live show going on over on YouTube. And then our friends, Travis Davidson and JP, they're also doing their live show tonight on YouTube as well. It's going to be like 9:45. So make sure you go check those out. We're all friends here. We might have different shows, but we're all friends, part of the Sooner Nation. We've had each of them on our show. So make sure you go check out that content as well. But thank you so much for being a part of this show and subscribing to the Locked On Sooners wherever you get your podcasts. Again, we're free and available on all platforms. We'll be back with more content this week. And hey, I've already talked to our guy. Like our favorite, Locked On Mountaineers. Unfortunately, we don't have a Locked On Mountaineers. I'm blanking right now, and I feel terrible that I'm blanking on the name. And I'm gonna I get myself going so quickly sometimes. But I've already talked with our friend Joshua Bates, center commit for the 2023 class. He's going to be on the show at some point in the next week. We'll get his takes on where things stand just with recruiting. He's in the middle of a playoff run, so we don't want to interrupt that or disrupt that right now, but wish Josh Bates luck as they get ready for some playoff football in Colorado as well. So
unbelievable. He won't tap out on the playoff game to come on Locked On Sooners. Ridiculous. What kind of commitment is this?
He would have come on this morning between 9:30 and 11:30, but I know somebody that works during that time. So Josh Helmer here would not be available. But no, he was ready to come on this morning. But I said, let's work at another time. So anyway, wish Josh Bates luck on his playoff run. And we got several Sooners commits going to the playoffs and going to probably have some deep runs in the playoffs. So again, thanks for tuning in to Locked On Sooners. Make it your first listen every single day. And for your second listen, go check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, where you get all the info and the biggest stories from the night before in 20 minutes or less with our guy, Peter Bukowski, on the Locked On Sports Today podcast, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. For Josh Helmer, I'm John Williams. We'll catch you next time. Again, thanks so much for joining the live show.